I'm going to talk a little bit about a lot of fun things today. Some of them I know a little bit, some of them I don't know a whole lot of. But a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is pretty cool out there that you can do today. I am also an accessibility advocate, so if you've seen any of my accessibility talks, you're going to kind of hear this spiel a little bit. This might get a little interactive, so if you can raise your hand, please raise your hand. I might ask some questions. And the first question I'm going to ask is, who is excited for the new Ghostbusters movie to come out? Who has not seen the final trailer that they're running before it comes out? Well, I'm going to play it for you right now. I am not sponsored. I'm not sponsored by Ghostbusters or Ivan and Jason Reitman. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but this gave me goosebumps, and I just wanted to play it for everybody in this room. If you're a fan of Ghostbusters, that's cool too. But if you're a fan of Ghostbusters, great. If you're not a fan of Ghostbusters, I don't know what to tell you. So let's do this real quick. But it's amazing. Let me play it.
I remember Revelations. And I looked as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. Judgment Day. Raise a call.
I'm calling about what happened in New York.
There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years.
Oh my God. What is happening here?
His grandfather was a Ghostbuster.
Something was coming and he knew it.
I think we opened the gates of hell.
Hey, have you missed us?
What? I literally started crying when I watched this trailer yesterday. So that's that. I just wanted to share it with you. For more news, go to ghostbustersnews.com. I'm not affiliated and or sponsored by them, but that made me happy. So we don't need to see you. We do need to go back here. And it's done. We're going to go all the way back so you can't see anything. Pretend like you're not seeing any of this. Just don't pretend. Pretend you don't see it. And there we go. All right, here we go. Huge shout out to ConnectTech for bringing everybody back, for having in-person events again. It feels amazing to see all of your wonderful faces. People I haven't seen in a couple years, people I've recently seen over the past couple months. I'm glad you're all here. And if it wasn't for events doing this again, taking proper protocols, making things happen, we wouldn't be here. So if you do get a chance to thank the organizers, thank the volunteers, thank the people that made this come together, please do that. Give them a huge shout. Also, if it wasn't for these fine companies and people, we wouldn't have events, right? Sponsors make this community happen. We all make it happen. But if it wasn't for sponsors, we wouldn't have events like this. So if you do get a chance to say hi to any of your sponsors, we're out there sponsoring. If you want to BS with me more this week, I'm here all week. Say hi, say what's up. Let them know that you appreciate them, because it means a whole lot. Instead of just going by their table and grabbing swag, tell them thank you. That means a lot in this instance. This is the official, from what I gather, and what has always been the official hashtag for the event. ConnectTech is the official event hashtag. If you're on Twitter, you're doing the Twitter thing, which I hope everybody in this room is. If you're taking pictures, quoting, whatever, through the whole entire event, hashtag ConnectTech, and also at Connect_JS is the official handle for the event. This one as well. I talk about developer community a lot. And if you follow me, you've seen my tweets where I'm constantly hashtagging developer community. It's a good way to track engagement. It's a good way to track to see what people are doing, where people are at, what events they're speaking at, etc. New things that are hitting the web, hitting the browsers. But the main reason I use it is to stay engaged with all of you. You are all my lifeblood. This is a safe space. I have a personal code of conduct. Don't be a jerk. That's all I'm asking. Be a nice person. We are here together. We've all come together within these four walls in this big space. This is a safe space. So if you are tweeting, also throw hashtag developer community on there. My name is Chris. Everybody calls me DeMars. You can find me on Twitter at @saltandburnham. If you are a Supernatural fan, you will understand that reference. Who is a Supernatural fan in here? All right. I know most of you are. You're a room full of nerds. Don't play that game with me. What about Buffy? Who's a Buffy fan? I know more of you don't want to put your hand up. It's okay. Charmed? Old Charmed or new Charmed? Old Charmed? Okay. I like Old Charmed. Stranger Things. Who's excited for Stranger Things Season 4? Dope. Well, that's where I get my handle from, Salt and Burnham Supernatural, if you understand that. I'm a developer advocate. I work at Rocket Mortgage. You might know us as Quicken Loans. We've done a rebranding, Rocket Mortgage, under the umbrella of Rocket Companies. If you want to know more about the cool stuff that we do, we build all our tech in-house. So if you want to know more about what we do, we have a booth out front. We have some swag. Grab some swag. Take it all. We don't want to ship this stuff back to Detroit. Please. I am a few of these different things right here. I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, a media developer expert with Cloudinary, Auth0 ambassador, and recently became a Progress Ninja through the Progress Ninja program. So that's really cool. I usually didn't have like a slide on all of these things after an event that happened one time. And the event was like, hey, Chris, we don't care about you. We care about your slides. So I removed all that stuff, and it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I'm human. I'm a person. Gant laughs because he's like, well, I don't know if you're that human. See? Gant, you want to stand up and just give a bow for everybody? But yeah, I used to have slides on all of this stuff, and because it meant something to me. I'm not up here just blowing smoke like I'm a real person. Like, you might not care a bit about what I'm talking about in this talk, but you might dig the things that I'm into, and that's cool. So I took it all out one time, and I was like, you know what, I'll put it all back. So I did put it all back, but I also have our team, shameless plug, we stream on Twitch now. So if you're not following, we stream Wednesday, what's today, Tuesday? Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday we do streaming. It's twitch.tv/RocketDevrel. Give us a follow, come hang out, BS with us in the chat if you want. Check it out. If you want to be a guest, and you are in the front-end space, the back-end space, or you are in the people space, and you talk about branding and maybe mental illness in tech or neurodiversity, all of these amazing things that make us a technology and developer community, hit me up and we can chat. I also love horror movies. If you couldn't tell, you came into a talk called It Came From the Browser. This is going to be all pretty much a horror talk. You saw the opening slide. You saw the opening video. That's what I love, and I am also very big into ufology, supernatural, paranormal, and cryptozoology. So, show of hands, who believes in Bigfoot? Okay, barely anybody. That's cool. Who believes in ghosts? Who believes in UFOs? Okay, sweet. You will now. Just kidding. I liked it. That was good. That was good. But yeah, these are just some of the things I'm into. So you want to BS with me, come and BS with me. I also love CSS a lot. Accessibility is my thing. CSS is my thing. I give a talk about CSS, which was the first rendition of this talk. It was called The Power of CSS. If you got a chance to see that, great. You'll probably never see it again because of all this amazing other stuff that we have coming out. So I had to write a talk about it. So I do love CSS. But a couple things that I'm not going to be talking about is CSS and JS. So if you came here to see a CSS and JS, there are exits in the front and on the sides. I'm not going to be talking about CSS and JS. I am also not going to be talking about styled components. This is a strictly purist CSS talk. If that's not for you, I'm sorry. And there's one main thing I am not talking about, and it's Tailwind. Huh? Come here. Come up here. Come up here. Do I know you? Do I know you? Come here. Come on, come up here. Come up here. You got a lot to say, right? Come on. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Come up here, Jake. This is my buddy, Jake. We are good friends. Everybody, give him a round of applause. Give everybody a bow. Jake's good people. That was fun. I'm glad we planned that. I just didn't want you to fall off the stairs. Yeah, he's got a Tailwind shirt on. I know. How perfect was that? Right? We planned it. Thank you for coming to the talk. It came from the browser. We're going to talk all about amazing stuff in CSS that you can do today, minus one thing. I promise it's coming, but we're going to talk a little bit about all of the cool stuff. And you know what actually I want to do? I want to bring this up and pull this over here. I need to switch this around. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. That's fine. We don't need that then. We'll just roll with this. Bet. First thing I want to talk about is logical properties. Who has heard about logical properties? This is perfect. This is great. Logical properties have a huge gamut of things that you can do in CSS. I can't talk about it all in one talk. It's impossible. At least for this talk. I could probably write a whole talk about logical properties. If you want, if you go to MDN, and I have this in a resources slide, if you go to MDN and you just type in logical properties, there is a whole page dedicated to it. A bunch of stuff that you can do. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about block size and inline size. We have good support. As you can see, we have across the board, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Opera, Safari on iOS. IE11 is going to die soon. So we don't have to, sorry bro. We don't have to worry about it too much. But we do have good support for logical properties. The first thing I want to cover with everybody is block size. So I don't like reading things. This is all on MDN, right? You can read it if you want. You can check out the slides because all these slides are online. I didn't do in PowerPoint this time around. So you can check this out. But pretty much what this is kind of how you do it. Block size, 200 pixels. Now you can also add in there writing directions, whether they're right to left, left to right, top down. So you can build and design around the browser, not like specific user agent styles or viewport widths and heights. You can build across the users and how the users are actually going to use these components. So this is what it looks like. Hopefully everybody can see this. Let me bump it up a little bit, if I can. We'll see. It probably won't bump up, will it? Nope. But we just have a wrapper, just some CSS. And then down here, the block size test. So block size is width. That's what the block size is. Let me see here. 1 second. You know what we're going to do? I'm actually going to do this, because it'll be easier. Use a separate display. And then we're going to do that. And then we're going to bring this. Which way do we go? We go this way. And then full. All right, so this is live. We can go over here. This is so difficult doing this. Where is, there we are. This is a pain. We're good. You know what, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it this way. I'm going to switch it back around for everybody. Okay. So if we were to change this, let's say we'll change it to 400 pixels in the result. This is width, block size. So you don't need to use width with a value anymore. Or you don't have to use width because width is static, right? So based on the right to left, left to right, top to bottom approach, when you're writing, you can start using width and height to build out your components. And there's a bunch of these different things. If we were to go here, logical properties and values. You have block versus inline. You have block size, inline size, max block size. You can do logical properties for margins, paddings, and borders. All of this stuff. So like I said, there's no way I can talk about this in this talk, all of it, but it's definitely a whole series of talks and or one big talk. But there's also properties in here for clearing floats and inset block end. You have other properties to handle overflow, and then you have some deprecated properties down here. So if you want to know more about this, if you go to developer.mozilla.org and just search logical properties, you'll be able to find them. So there's that. I like playing with this stuff too, just to see how it reacts to the net. Then you got that. This one. So then we have inline size. Now inline size, the dimension parallel to the flow of text within a line, the horizontal dimension in horizontal writing mode. So like I was saying, a lot of this is based off of your writing modes. It's the horizontal dimension. And this is what that looks like. It's just inline size. So instead of block, you just put in inline. And now it's replacing that width or that height. So we have the 50. We can even change that to like 500, 5,000. It might break. I don't know how CodePen's going to handle it. That didn't work. There we go. So now we have the width. So I think I did misspeak for a hot second. Block is height and inline is the width. So you can start replacing your widths and your heights, and you can do this. I heard Ionic is doing this, right, Mike? Ionic is currently using logical properties in the code that they're writing for their components, right? Because it is supported. So you can definitely start using it today. I definitely suggest you do it. If you want to know more about logical properties, if you don't follow Adam Argyle on Twitter, definitely give Adam Argyle a shout. A lot of the demos I'm showing in CodePen and some of the code samples are either mine or they're Adam's. I've gotten with his permission, and he and I talked about it. Because he can do things a lot more eloquently and with his animations and stuff like that. So if you get a chance to follow him, definitely give him a follow. Accent color, that's a nice one. Has anybody heard of accent color? Okay, sweet. So what accent color is, it's a way to tint certain elements of your UI with one line of CSS. That's pretty sweet. But it's not tinting every element of your CSS. One element. And with that element, there are only 4 available elements within that one parent element. If you had to guess that parent element, not a table, but it would be a form. And in that form, there's only 4 things you can tint. You can tint the color of the checkbox, if you need to match your branding. You can tint the color of the range, which is really cool. You can tint the color of the radio button. And then you can tint the color of the progress bar, if you're using a progress bar. Also, the thing about tinting these specific elements within a form, being an accessibility person, you have to make sure that those colors you're choosing are going to work. They have to make sense with the contrast depending on the foreground and the background. So you can't just throw any colors you want in there and think it sticks, right? You have to make sure that it's accessible. It meets color contrast guidelines, Wcag 2.1, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. You're going to want to hit AA. If you're doing everything that a web developer is supposed to do, you'll hit A. AA is where you want to hit. AAA is a lot harder. A little caveat for that, if you are familiar with conformance levels, A, AA, and AAA, those are going to be going away at some point in a couple years. So just keep that on your radar. So if you're ever doing any research into accessibility, a year or 2, maybe 3, 5 years? 5 years, now, you're way down there. And you see conformance levels that are gold, silver, bronze, right? Gold, silver, bronze. That is the replacement for A, AA, and AAA. It's just a new naming convention, a new way to remember how to get your conformance levels up to where they need to be based on the W3 and what the Wcag says. If you also use different themes in your application, which if you do, hopefully they're accessible, accent color does work with dark and light themes, which is really cool. I have a link to resources about this as well that had come from Adam, where if you change the theme of the UI, it will also either stay or it'll change. But 9 times out of 10, it stays the same. So if it's pink and a white theme, it'll be also hot pink in a black theme as well. We got good support for this one. Chrome, Firefox. What else we got? Edge. Edge is Chromium now, so anything pretty much that Chrome supports, Edge is going to support. No IE, no Safari. I hear that. Does anybody work for Apple in here? Okay, good, because I heard Safari is the new IE. Is that true? It is? Safari. I can tell you Safari is very behind on newer features that are coming out in the browser, and it sucks. But I think they're making strides to be a little bit better, but as it stands right now, that's what I hear. They are the new IE. This is the only line of CSS you need. Accent color with whatever your color is. You'll be able to style and tint those 4 elements within those form elements. So this is Adam's CodePen. Just a form with some labels, checkboxes, radio buttons, a slider, and a progress element. And then accent color deep pink. So checkbox, radio buttons, the slider, and then the progress element. Shout out a color, just any color. Quicker than that. Blue. 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 Blues? Blue. Blues. Come on. Oh, wait. What am I doing? That's... there we go. There's one. Top, under, what? What did you say there?
Hit result, and then the bottom right hand corner.
Rerun, there we go. I don't use CodePen a lot. Let's see, accent color. Let's just do this. Yes, blue is really a color. Come on.
You just turn it.
There we go. So yeah, Adam had a couple different blues scattered throughout, but you can change any color and you can update these 4 things. Now, it's coming, from what I read, that you can do more with these different elements within a form, that you can add the tinting of the accent color to, but today in the browser, you can do this, but it's only limited to those 4 things. I've never given an actual feature talk. What do I mean by feature talk? Where I'm up here, I tell you about this cool new shiny thing that's really dope, that's supported. Here's what it is, here's what the code is, here's the UI, move on. I've never done that. The talks I usually give are story talks. They have case studies, graphs, more video, more audio. So I do want to apologize in advance. If this talk ends early, then I'm sorry. I hope you don't hate me. I hope you still give me raving reviews. But let's talk about aspect. Who's heard of aspect ratio? Okay, sweet. So what aspect ratio is or does, it sets a preferred aspect ratio for the box, which will be used in the calculation of auto sizes and some other layout functions. WTF, what does that even mean, Chris? Well, I first read it, I'm like, I don't know either, because I don't see any aspect ratio changing in this code. Until I dug a little bit more, and there's a handful of different things you can do. But what it pretty much means is that it helps to keep sizing consistently, right? A great use case for it, and a great example, is a hero image within a header. You no longer have to set background images with your CSS, right? You can actually use an image, and then based on how it's going to scale with an aspect ratio, you're good to go. Well, how handy is it? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. You can use it in responsive iframes. Now, I'm not telling you to use responsive iframes. I'm not telling you to use iframes. But according to CSS Tricks, this is one use case where if you had to do it, this is where you can use aspect ratio. Hero images, like I said, I love a good hero image. I like having something that's up in your face, ready to go, but also can scale well without getting pixelated or hitting a specific size and then that size just breaks. Now you can use object fit cover and object fit contain. You can do all those things. But aspect ratio really preserves the crispness of that image, which is really, really nice. And grid layouts. If you go to csstricks.com and you search for this specific aspect ratio article, there's a section for responsive image or responsive iframes, hero images, grid layouts, and it's a drop down, and it tells you all of the coolness that you can do within those 3 different types of categories. Now, I'm not going to cover it today because I'm not Chris Coyer, I'm Chris DeMars, and he knows more about CSS Tricks than I do. But definitely check that out if you want to learn more about aspect ratio, responsive iframes, hero images, and grid layouts, and how that all kind of plays a part in how it's handy. We have good support across the board, believe it or not. IE, not so much. But at least it's Edge, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, all your major players in the game. These are a bunch of values that it can take. You have auto, so we'll just auto size it for you. You could do a width and height equal proportion. You can do width is twice the height. So you can do all of these things. Typical video aspect ratio, that should be commented out, and it's not, I don't know why. You can do an auto and do the width and height, so you can take 2 different properties, which is really cool. You can do that. And you can inherit from global values, initial, unset. So if you just were looking at some CSS and you're like, oh, this doesn't look great, and I have to unset an aspect ratio that's 5,000 lines up here, you can always just do an unset. At least I've always been able to do an unset, and it will unset it. That's not good practice in what we do. I personally don't feel like you should unset anything. You should be writing it direct. You should be writing it right from the start with the cascade in mind and understanding how if you put something at the bottom, it's going to change what you just did. Being cognizant of that, having a good CSS architecture in place like BEM or SMAX or Atomic is crucial for this stuff to work. At least for things not to spill out and the cascade to work. CSS modules is a really cool tool as well. So does anybody use CSS modules? What? Holy CSS modules is great. It's not Css and Js, it's not styled components. You encapsulate the CSS to the component, but it's still CSS. You're not inlining it. You're not, taking it and then having JavaScript write it for you. That's not what that is. So if you ever get a chance to use CSS modules in an application, whether that's at work or a personal project or a freelance client project, definitely do it. I've used it on a couple projects, and it makes encapsulation a lot easier than just writing everything in one Sass file. But if you're using Sass, then you're using partials and imports, and it looks nice. So this is fun. Hero aspect ratio. The code I'm using right here, this demo came from another person that I follow on Twitter. I also linked them at the end, so definitely check that out. You have the aspect ratio of 16:9, which is kind of, screen size. If you're using Keynote, if you do presentation software, you usually want to use 16:9. But when you scale this, let me see if I can even do that. I don't know if it'll let me. Probably not. What the hell? Yeah, I don't think I can scale this. Oh. Either way, check out Mujtaba on CodePen. Follow him on Twitter. If you were to go to that specific demo and see the UI, you can scale that image and it maintains that aspect ratio, whether it gets really small or really big. Changing out the aspect ratio, you could do auto, like I was saying, you could do width and height, you could set the 2 properties on it. Play with these things a little bit. This is brand new stuff, right? And I'm not saying it's brand new like, hey, you should use this because I said so, right? I'm not up here advocating for a framework or a library. This is built into the web that we are building, right? This is HTML and CSS, no JavaScript, but it's one of the main parts of the building blocks of the front end. Stuff that you can use, and you can always have a fallback. Like if you don't want to use block size or inline size, you can always add an add supports query. For browsers that don't support it, use width and height. Progressive enhancement and graceful degradation are pieces to the pie of what we're doing on the web. Mike was telling me earlier, Ionic is using block size and inline size for their widths and their heights. But they also offer the add supports query, or they offer width and height if the browser doesn't support block and inline. How long have y'all been doing that? How long have you had how long have logical properties been in your code base? 6 months. Cool. That's great. And nobody probably can tell the difference unless you're in that code, right? You can use these things. If you don't want to, you don't have to, right? But they're there for you. They're there to get excited about when you're building on the web. I wish I could show this too, but sorry. CodePen is different. Especially, I had to put this in an iframe. If anybody ever used Reveal.js to build out a talk, right? Well, there's other ones out there. There's MDX Deck, and you can use that with CodeSurfer. I was using Reveal to build this out because I just had too much I wanted to put in. I didn't want to use Keynote, and I had some other things I wanted to do. But I had to throw this CodePen inside an iframe for it to work so y'all could see it. And if the connection is bad, CodePen doesn't work. So I do apologize. But like I said, this talk is out there on the web. I can tweet it out. You can go check out the slides, play with all the demos, whatever you want to do. It's free range. Who has heard of Marker? And I'm not talking about a Sharpie. I'm not talking about a Crayola or a dry erase or a Vis-a-Vis. I used to like Vis-a-Vis markers, the one that smelled like fruit. You get those in school when you're drawing. They're non-toxic, okay? I'm not up there just sniffing markers. I promise I wasn't. I know I'm a little off. Marker's pretty sweet. You can customize the marker of your ordered and your unordered lists. So you don't need just a plain dot anymore. You just don't need numerical values. You don't need Roman numeral values anymore. You can change all that stuff up based on the UI, based on your branding, based on how you want the aesthetic to look. But it's still accessible because it's a list, right? The marker has nothing to do with the accessibility of that list. A list, by default, is semantic markup. Semantic markup, by default, is accessible. And I hope all of you are writing semantic markup, because you don't want to be in an accessibility talk and tell me you don't. You can customize these things now, and they don't have to deal with accessibility because you're still using list items. Once again, great support. If you don't go to caniuse.com on the daily to see all about HTML features and CSS features and JavaScript features and what works and what doesn't work in common browser bugs, what works behind a feature flag, definitely do it. Caniuse.com is the prime source, paired with MDN, in my opinion, to get all this information. So we have good support across the board. This is what it looks like. Marker, content, you have to have the content on there. I put a ghost because this is a spooky talk. I was actually going to dress up for this talk, and I thought, it might be a little bit too much. I didn't want to scare anybody. But this is what it looks like. Right here. If you add the content, you can put in whatever you want. You can put in arrows, and you can put in emoji. If you have custom SVG or icons that your company uses for your branding, you can also put that in. There's a handful of different things that you can do with this. Ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, oh my, because that is my life. Is everybody cool with what I've talked about so far? I know we're kind of getting through, but there is literally so many things to talk about, and I haven't even made a dent in this talk. There's a handful of other features out there that are not supported at all, but they are coming, that you can use with polyfills, different things like that. There's features that have moderate support, so they're not fully featured. You might need to throw in a feature flag. They might only work in nightly or dev versions of your browser. And then you have the stuff that is fully supported, and I've only covered a handful of the fully supported stuff in this talk. There's a bunch more out there. Has anybody heard of Where and Is? This is perfect. I'm glad everybody came into this talk. There are other talks going on, but you came to see this one, and I appreciate it because we're talking all about the amazing CSS fun. So what is Where? Well, it's a pseudo class for one. It takes its selector as an argument, and then an element can be selected by one of the selectors in that list. Well, what does that even mean? Well, this is what that means. Good support. That's what that means. Once again, i.e., meh. But you can use it in other places today in the browser. If you were to look at this pseudo class and you use Where and you're going to pass it in a header, a main, and a footer, and all three of those things have a paragraph in it with a hover pseudo element. Cursor hot pink, font weight bold, or color hot pink, sorry. What this turns into, essentially, is what we've done for years, right? If the paragraph within a header has a hover, comma, if the paragraph has a header or a hover within a main, comma, this is how you would structure that. In the olden days, I guess, right? Now you don't have to do that. You can do Where header, main, footer, if it has a paragraph in it and it has a hover state, do that. Now this isn't JavaScript. I know there looks like a lot of JavaScripty stuff and else do if this and that and the other thing. This is not JavaScript. This is straight CSS that you can do in the browser. Kind of looks a little sassy, a little lessy, but it's not sass and it's not less. Where header, main, and footer have a paragraph inside of a hover state, change to hot pink, right? So we have the markup, we have a header that has a paragraph, we have a main that has a paragraph, we have a footer that has a paragraph. And then this down here just to prop out the developer MDN, even though the link's at the bottom of the slides. Header, main, and footer are all accessible markup, semantic accessible markup. If you're not using that, you should. Just saying. So what happens? Now we can do all this, and we don't have to write it the old way, right? So now, with that being said, let's talk about is. Now, is a pseudo selector or a pseudo class with a function that takes in arguments and selects those selectors in a compact form, but they're selecting the selectors with that what you passed them, right? Okay, that's all fine and dandy. We have good support. We even have future support. So the cool thing about caniuse.com is that it will tell you about future support down here. It'll let you know what's coming, what's not coming, when things are going to be supported, if it's going to be supported in the future, and if it does pretty much have good future support, it'll show you. Is the header, main, and footer have a paragraph within it, and that paragraph has a hover state in the CSS, change the color to red and the cursor to pointer. Same thing, header, p-hover, main, p-hover, footer, p-hover, color red, cursor pointer. So all three of my elements all have paragraphs within them. Cursor red, pointer. Okay, sweet, right? That works. Okay, that works. But wait a minute here. Why are they the same? What I just told you about where is the exact same thing as what is. right? Why is that? And this kind of tripped me up when I was doing the research and I was building this talk and building out some demos. Like, man, this doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to understand the docs because I don't know about you, but sometimes docs are hard for me to understand in Grok. Sorry. I've been a technologist for a long time, and sometimes I still don't understand what the technical jargon of the docs are. Like, I'm sorry. I'm a human being. I'm not a robot, right? They're different. It's true, yo. They are different. But what makes them different? One is based on specificity, and one is not based on specificity. Specificity makes CSS what it is. The cascade makes CSS what it is. The cascade and specificity make CSS great. Make it fun to learn. I know it can be a little bit difficult, but we got the guy in the Tailwind shirt up here. That tells you anything. Just joking. I love you. I haven't seen Jake in a few years, so it was really nice to see him and give him a hug. And I have to mess with him. But is based on specificity and where is not. So the more that you have in that is statement, and it can be very, very specific, your specificity levels go up. 0, 1, 100. I actually forgot how that chart actually works. There's a handful of charts out there. But where is not specific to that. Where it just works. But if you were to use where and is going to take priority over that, opposed to where. So in this demo, let's see here, what do we got? Is section article aside nav H1, font size is 25 pics. Where's the H1? Right here. Are you enjoying ConnectTech? So we can change this, and I think one of these demos has other way of doing it. So there. Now let's do, this should work. It worked when I did it the other day. Let's do where. And let's change this to red 25. Please work. Yeah, I think we're good. But see, the cascade says that this should happen down here, right? But since is has that specificity, the is going to work. So it's going to stay purple, it's going to stay at 65 pixels. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, that's okay. Because it still is a little tricky for me to grok, like I was saying. But you can use it in the browser. Oh, here we go. Accessibility, this is my jam. You know what's about to happen. Question. How many of you are building with accessibility as your top priority today? That's bad. All of you lost at this game. All of you. Well, not all of you. Who has heard of focus and what focus is? Focus is the visual indicator that you're interacting with something on the page. Let me repeat that for all of you. Focus is the visual indicator that lets you know that you are interacting with something on the page. Button, link, etc. Form elements. You do not take focus out. This is CSS. We're not talking about JavaScript. JavaScript does have a focus method. We're not talking about that. This is not a JavaScript talk. Focus is the visual indicator that something's being interacted with on the page. If you add, or if you change your focus outline to 0 or none, that is not something that you're going to want to do. Why? Does anybody know why? If you know why, yell it out. There you go. If you take out the focus, you take out that visual indicator, you're taking focus out for everybody. Your keyboard users, your mouse users, any other assistive technology users, they don't know what they're doing. Now you just made their life that much more harder because the web itself is already a pain in the butt. Right? Focus lets you know that you are in a password field and that you're typing your password in the right spot. I had somebody come up to me after a talk that I gave. I give a talk on focus and accessibility styles in CSS, and I gave a very exaggerated example about focus and focus styles and why focus styles matter. And it was like, hey, I was tabbing, and then I thought I was in my password field. I got distracted, muscle memory. I started typing my password. I looked back at my machine. My password was not there. I don't know where I typed it. I thought that was exaggerated. Till somebody came up to me after the talk and said, that happened to me. I got distracted. I was tabbing through a form element, a login. I went to type my password. I looked away. Automatically, I'm typing. I look back, and the password isn't there, and there's no focus. Where did my password go? Eventually, I think they got it under control. Nothing bad came out of that, but it just goes to show you that without knowing what's going on the web with accessibility, you can cause your users a lot of issue. So when we talk about focus, I'm not specifically going to talk about focus styles, but I'm going to talk about a couple things that I've learned over the years, and one of them is focus within. Focus within is a pretty cool thing to use. You can use it on the web. Look at caniuse.com. No support in IE. Who still supports IE? I just want to, anybody? Yeah? I'm sorry. Sorry. Do you do like a lot of kiosk work in malls? Is that where you, no? Okay. I'm not, now that, I know that's funny. That's really funny. But I had somebody tell me one time they had to support like IE9 or like IE, like super IE, because the work that they were doing was direct work that was deployed to kiosks in malls. And most of those run on older versions of IE, or even like internal intranets at like very large scale enterprise companies that are kind of lacking in the tech department. They're still running all that stuff on IE. So there are people out there, clearly, that are still supporting IE, so you can't really use this, I'm sorry. But you're here, so I appreciate you. This is what that looks like. Form, focus within, background, this color, and then the color of the text is going to be black. Now this is really awesome. This is a demo of mine from a few years ago. Just some base styles, a wrapper, a button. So the way this works is, if you were to wrap a parent element like a form within focus within, when you focus to that element, the whole thing gets focus. Not just the input, not just the label, not just the button. So if I were to tab into that, boom. The border's there just to make it stand out a little bit. But you can see right there, and you can change anything in here. You can change the font size, you can change the font color, the color of the background. You can do whatever you need to do to make sure that you're matching your branding to implement these focus styles. And that's an argument you get a lot. Brand, marketing teams, etc. We don't like that ring that's around buttons and inputs. Can we remove it? Yeah, that's great. You can remove it all you want. But you have to be able to put something back in that gives that user focus. Yeah? Is that a substitute for focus outline? No. But it's something cool that you can use today, right? So if you're not using focus within, maybe there's somewhere that you can apply this within your applications. And like like I said, you can change it all up to lime green, because my favorite color is green, if you couldn't tell. Result. Come on, wife. Come on. That's the border. I can't read. I don't have my glasses. Let's do this one. Boom. So you can change it. Focus within is pretty sweet. I learned this technique from Kravitz 3 or 4 years ago. I never knew it existed in the CSS space, in the web front-end space. If you don't follow Una on Twitter, definitely give her a follow. Focus visible is another one. This was really cool when this came out. It had prefixes and it had polyfills and a lot of JavaScript to make it happen. The whole point behind focus visible is that based on heuristics and your machine, If you're using a website or a web page, whether you're coming from a trackpad and mouse or just a keyboard, the focus ring either gets added in or taken out, right? I guess the rumors I've always heard is that a bunch of mouse users were like, I don't need a focus ring, I can see what I'm doing. So, some amazing people at Google created this feature called Focus Visible, which you had to use with a polyfill. It was a bunch of JavaScript. It would whitelist a bunch of elements that didn't need the focus ring, but then also put the focus ring back in for other pieces of that UI. Decent support, Safari, not yet, but Edge, Firefox, Chrome. This is what it looks like. It's :focus - visible. So you can set the outline to whatever you want, the outline offset, colors, etc. Now this is from web.dev. If you get a chance to ever go to web.dev, a lot of content from Google is published there. If you're not familiar with using Lighthouse in the dev tools, if you go to web.dev and you want to run a Lighthouse audit, you can run a Lighthouse audit in the browser. So that's really good for like stakeholders or people who are not as technical that really don't want to fire up the dev tools in Chrome and run a Lighthouse audit. They can do this on their own going to web.dev. So for this example specifically, I'm going to use the trackpad and I'm clicking on this button, right? Nothing's happening because I'm using the trackpad. Now, if I were to use just the tab, now it gets focus. Very powerful feature when it comes to CSS and accessibility. My two favorite things. Let me do it again. We can even make, let's do like 10 for funsies. No, you know what? What was that? 2, let's do 10. Rerun this. Come on, Kona. Come on, Kona. Come on, there we go. Clicking on the button with the mouse, the trackpad, nothing. Tab, I can tab it all day long and that focus outline will come back, right? So you can use this today. GordonCanIUse.com, you can use this. So that way, your mouse users don't get, all out of shape because they don't want to see the focus ring, but you're also still making it accessible and progressively enhancing that experience for somebody with an impairment or a disability. Cool? Sweet. Nesting, this is fun. Nesting is a good time. It looks like it's going to be a good time. Who uses Sass in here? Raise your hand. Perfect, perfect. Do I have any less users in here? I've used it in prior. What about stylus? No stylus? Wow, cool. Well, this is kind of like Sass. Like we have nesting in Sass, right? What did you say? What did you say? Man, I'm waiting for you guys tomorrow. Somebody's talking to get it. Ed, there's the door. There's the door. This guy uses inline styles. If you have any of those stress balls from my table, feel free to throw them at Ed. He's up front on the corner. Sass is great. I love Sass. We have variables in Sass. We have nesting in Sass. We have mix-ins in Sass. So this is sort of like Sass. But there's no support. It's coming. It's coming. At least they tell me it's coming. The browser makers tell me it's coming. The vendors say it's coming. But this is sort of how this is going to look prior to what we were doing previously. Instructors, then you have instructors, dot instructor, right? Class instructor. But this is what this is going to look like. So it does look very familiar, like Sass, right? That will turn into that at some point. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. When? I don't know. I wish I could give y'all a date. I'm super stoked for it, but I don't have a date yet. Gradient shadows. This is really fun. You can do this today. We're using logical properties, replacing height and width for that. I actually ran out of time, so I'm going to show this. You could do this today. Like you could make shadow gradients with your box shadows. Really cool stuff. And it's just a background linear gradient to bottom right, border radius, inline size, block size, so we're using those logical properties, setting positions and offsets. You can do this today. Konig Gradients. Has anybody heard of Konig Gradients? Cool. Leah Veru started talking about Konig Gradients a long time ago. Long time ago. They weren't even a thing yet. But she was making them happen somehow, some way. You can create pie charts and gradients that are in a circle, not like radial gradients, but we have support now, besides IE11. This is what it would look like. You use Konig Gradient, parens, throw in for like 90 degree from wherever you want it to start, at different points, kind of like a keyframe almost, and then just throw in all your colors. Oops. And then you get that. You get a nice gradient that goes from the center all the way around, opposed to the center out, it goes to the center all the way around. You can create pie charts with this. There's a website that I'll tweet out later, it's also in the resources, that already has like pre-made Konig gradients that you can use. And all you do is just copy the code, throw it in your CSS, and you're good. Konig gradient border is another one that's really cool that you can do. These examples came from Adam Argyle. You can actually create a Konig gradient to be the border of your components. So you don't need just like a blank, like a regular solid color anymore, right? You can use these Konig gradients as your back or as your border on the web, and it's supported, and you can do it, which is really cool if you want something fun. Subgrid, who is ready for who likes CSS grid? Who uses CSS grid? I love it. Subgrid, it's here, sort of. Supported in Firefox. I'm a diehard Firefox user. I do not use Chrome at all, unless I'm doing like performance testing. All the new seems to come out in Firefox. And I like using Firefox. Their dev tools are amazing for grid and flexbox and variable fonts, really good stuff. It's coming. It's nesting a grid within a grid. So now you can do different types of layouts. Not just, it's like two-dimensional layouts plus two-dimensional layouts, right? I don't think that equals 4D, but it might. So I'm like, damn! They're waiting for Debo to come. But you can do it in columns. And what that looks like, I just have the outline around it just to kind of break it up a little bit. But let's say that the purple is your grid. You can also lay another grid on top of that and position it anywhere within the columns, right? That's super powerful. What that looks like, you have your grid, your item, but then you have the sub-item that's going to sit on top of that item. And you can place that anywhere within that grid, within a column. And you can also do it with your rows. This is what the row looks like. It's still a display of grid template columns, grid template rows. You have your item that's going across the columns and your rows, but then you can also lay the item on top of the rows as well. So you can do the columns, you can do the rows, you can do rows, or you can do columns. And this is what that looks like. So now, instead of just having it on the columns, I'm taking up 1, 2, 3, what is this? 2 and 4. And the grid item, the grid row, is going 1 to 3. Subgrid, it's a good time. There's some resources for you. bit.ly/it came from the browser. I can tweet these out. If anybody wants to take a picture, take a picture. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. People to follow. Amazing people to follow. Adam, Miriam, Jen, Rachel, Yuna, Mojtaba, all people to follow on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, definitely give them a follow, see what they're doing. Thank you, and that's my time.